Thank you. New question, the member from Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Energy, but I would first like to congratulate the Premier for listening to Ontarians, caring enough to act, and make people's lives better. That's what leadership is. Mr. Speaker, over the course of many months, families and businesses in my riding of Davenport have expressed concern over the rising cost of hydro. They don't understand why hydro rates have gone up, and they're frustrated by the bills delivered to their door. People are worried about the price they're being asked to pay and the impact it's having on their household budgets. For some of them, it's reached a point where they're choosing between keeping the lights on and keeping food in the refrigerator. This is unacceptable, and I know you'll agree that that's unacceptable. North or south, rural or urban, this issue affects us all. While I know our government has already taken concrete steps to help, we all agree that more is needed. Can the Minister of Energy tell us about what we're doing to ensure electricity prices are fair for Ontario families and businesses?
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to also acknowledge the member for her important question and, of course, her hard work in her constituency. And I know, Mr. Speaker, electricity is an essential part of our life, Mr. Speaker. And everywhere I was able to travel in this capacity over the last 8 months, Mr. Speaker, I hear from people worried about the price they pay for electricity, Mr. Speaker. And over those past few months, I know the Premier, myself, and many of our colleagues, MPPs, have been made a point, Mr. Speaker, of connecting with those individuals. And so we've either gone to visit them, Mr. Speaker, or we've called them. And, Mr. Speaker, people want to know three things. First off, Mr. Speaker, that the relief, substantial relief, is on its way, and it is, Mr. Speaker. Second, that relief will go to everyone, Mr. Speaker, and it will. And third, that the relief will be lasting because it is built on real change, that bills won't just jump back up in a couple of months or a couple of years, Mr. Speaker. I was very pleased to join the Premier this morning in making that announcement, Mr. Speaker, and I will start doing so, Mr. Speaker, by making sure those bills come down as soon as possible.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the Minister of Energy for his response. I believe most of us are aware of today's announcement and are keen to learn more about what it means for families and businesses. I know that this is especially true for my constituents in Davenport. Earlier this week, the NDP released their own proposal for addressing hydro costs. Ontarians are still waiting on the Conservatives to reduce a realistic proposal to bring down rates. While we welcome new ideas on ways to help people struggling with energy rates, I believe it's important for Ontarians to understand the differences between these approaches. So my question to the Minister of Energy is, can you provide more details on our plan and how it compares to the others?
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're moving forward with the largest cut to electricity rates in Ontario's history, Mr. Speaker. We are tripling the size of the cut we're making to people's electricity bills from 8% to an average of 25%. Wow. And for those living in rural communities or with low incomes, the break, Mr. Speaker, will be even greater. So how does this compare to the opposition parties, Mr. Speaker? Right now, neither party has a credible approach to dealing with rising electricity costs, Mr. Speaker. While our plan provides fast, substantial, widespread and long-lasting relief, Mr. Speaker, the PCs are struggling to agree with one another on their own one-off schemes, Mr. Speaker. Their biggest idea of ripping up energy contracts will lead to increased rates, lawsuits and penalties, Mr. Speaker. The other idea, halting the broadening of the ownership of Hydro One, Mr. Speaker, it won't take 1 cent off of electricity bills, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, we're actually acting, we're reducing bills, and we're helping people right across this province.